Today on the Workplace Maker podcast, we talk with Sandra from the Netherlands about placemaking and the parallel between placemaking and workplace making. What is it that makes a place where people want to be, and how do you get there? It's fantastic to talk with her. She has such a rich experience in this and some really inspiring and incredible stories that I am so thrilled to be able to share with you. Sandra, it is amazing to have you here on the Workplace Makers podcast. As a placemaker yourself, I'm so excited to explore the parallels with workplace making and just hear a little more around your history and how you got into this. I know you've had some experience in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, where you're from, and you've had experience in other cities around the world as well. So how did you get into this idea of placemaking? Where did it start for you? What was the initial spark?
Well, I studied architecture at the Technical University in Eindhoven, and that was in the 90s. And there was a bit of a drama in Eindhoven where I studied because it didn't go well with the technical companies, especially with Philips, and many people worked for that company, and they had to let 40,000 people go. They lost their jobs, and in total the city had 120,000 jobs, so it was quite a lot. And in addition to those jobs, also big city areas became obsolete. The factories, the offices, you name it. And that's when I was about to graduate from university. And I thought, well, we have to make something out of those areas because they had very characteristic buildings. And they were like forbidden cities with fences around. And now we could do something with it. And I thought, well, Eindhoven wasn't an exciting town. It was quite dull, actually, because of all those technical students like I was. And I thought if we could make it attractive for creatives, for designers, for artists, that would really add value to the city if those people came also here.
Amazing.
And I started to create plans, not just the buildings, but what was going to be in those buildings. And I also did a very extensive research on the history of a special site called Strijp-S. I told the stories, and well, at the end of my studies, when I completed it, many people in Eindhoven were enthusiastic about the idea of doing something with Strijp-S. People at Philips, people from the city, many more people. So I was asked to join the city as an urban planner. And then I started creating the real plans with a lot of people together. Yeah, so that's what got me into it.
Wow, so right at the beginning of your career, really that whole time you've been a placemaker, you've been thinking about how can we turn these places into something. And it seems like a really central part of that has been making it a place that people want to come to. So what
Yes.
have you talk about adding economic and social value to these places. So what is that like? What's the product at the end? I guess what is the difference that it makes to have that economic and social value?
I often see when buildings and areas become obsolete, that people think, okay, let's demolish the old buildings because then we can make a profit quite fast. Or nowadays, housing is in great demand in the Netherlands. Well, then we'll just make housing into these offices. But when you do that, it feels like a quick fix, but actually it damages things because you're parasiting on the city instead of adding value. When we would have demolished all those great buildings in Eindhoven from Philips, well, all those characteristics would have been gone by now. So keeping the history is very important, but also, how do you say that? Well, for example, now I work for the city of Helmond, and they need a lot of housing in Helmond, but they also need a lot of jobs. So I start creating breeding grounds in obsolete buildings. We could turn them into houses, but then Helmond would only be for living in, and there would be no economic value in that city. So I try to build that up by using the old buildings that are not used anymore for exactly those businesses that they need right now.
How exciting. And you
And
mentioned
that's against the stream, of course, because it's more of a long-term thought.
So interesting.
And most times people think, oh, that won't work. Let's do what brings a profit in right now. But on the long term, when you choose to put functions in those buildings that really add value to a city society, then in the long run, everybody enjoys that, has something out of it. Yeah.
Amazing. That difference between the short term and the long term thinking is so clear, isn't it? And then what you're really thinking about is which businesses can come into that space and actually create more of a place where people want to be, where they're enjoying, they're enjoying the space, they're enjoying being in that place, they want to be there, they're coming in there, they're going to spend money there. And so how important is it in that design process to involve people who might come? Do you find yourself talking with creatives and with cafe owners, or are they part of your ecosystem as you're working this up?
Well, yes. And nowadays we have social media, which is very nice, because 20 years ago I had to organize all kinds of discussions and workshops, and I really love doing that. But now we also have social media, and then I just tell people, look, we are developing this site, and this might hold opportunities for you. And we're thinking a bit of in this direction. What do you think? And then people come in with ideas, and when they're really entrepreneurial, they want to start their own business or move their business over there. And that's the way I do it.
Amazing. So by by sharing the vision and opening the conversation, you end up getting greater involvement from key people who can really make a difference.
Yeah, it's just urban planning is not about buildings alone. Actually, you're revitalizing the ecosystem. That is what you do. And you show that there's opportunity. And where there's emptiness, where there's vacancy, there's opportunity. And when you show people what could be possible there, and if you give them a hand in making their dreams become reality, well, then, all kind of wonderful things start to happen. And at first, people are very skeptic, but when they see the first successes, they become interested, they become proud, and sometimes they want to join in, or they are ambassadors for what you're doing over there.
Love it. That's such a close parallel with workplace making, because of that connection there with involving people, where often people can approach it in two ways, where they top down, they think this is the right thing to do, they're essentially imposing their plan on the workplace, or they can have a longer term approach where they involve people and co-create with them to a certain degree to be able to arrive at a really fit for purpose and just well matched space that people actually want to be part of. So it's there's a really different, such an extreme contrast between those two options. And in your experience, it sounds like you found that involving people in the experience and sharing the vision, giving them chances to say what works for them, has actually been really valuable.
Yeah, but it's not common to do that in the Netherlands. People think it's a bit scary to do that, to give people the opportunity to think along, to co-create.
Yes.
That's it's quite challenging in the Netherlands for me to convince mostly municipalities to work in that way.
And what do you think they're scared of? What do you think they are? Because there's a very similar parallel there where it's a lot easier. It seems less messy to devise a plan, implement that plan, and then just tell people what's going to happen.
It feels like you're more in control when you do it like that. But actually, when you the result will never be as special, or people won't be as proud or as strongly related to the end product than when they would have had the chance to think along. But it feels like you're giving away a bit of control.
Yeah.
And maybe that is what you do, but you also attract a lot of value and a lot of value creation that you couldn't have foreseen before opening it up.
I love that. That's so well said. So what you did there with Eindhoven actually had a really positive result. And so that process that you took of the co-creation of really, I think from what you said before, there was quite a lot of persistence required to actually eventually get some doors open and be able to work in that way where people could get involved in a larger vision. And what was the result of that? What's Eindhoven like now, and what's happened in that city?
Well, I didn't do that alone, of course, but with many people together. I started it up at strategist, and after that I did a lot of developments in that city. And the result of Eindhoven nowadays, it's that, well, as a whole, it's become the third main port of the Netherlands. It's called the brain port, actually, because it's the combination of technical design and knowledge. And we have 170,000 jobs now here in the city alone, and in the region many, many more. And the terrain that I graduated on, Strijp S, and now it has almost 1,000 businesses, thousands of people living there in lofts and apartments. There's a big event space, shops, restaurants, workspaces, you name it. It's actually one of the coolest parts of town, hottest, I love to say more. And it's really made the city very attractive.
So you really have turned it through with that work together with a cohort of people, and with that initial vision and your persistence, from hopeless to hotspot, which is the name of your podcast. And it's exciting.
The book I've written,
Oh yeah, brilliant. So we'll put those links into the show notes. And when you think about that and the transformation that was required to achieve that, we talked a little bit about I guess the cost to people of the discomfort of losing control, and of that broader conversation being something that no one knew exactly where it was going to go. So that can be one of the challenges of transformations, that people are always trying to define exactly the end point right at the beginning. And I guess I'm wondering, you get involved now with clients where you're helping them to get unstuck on that transformation journey. So what do they often need to do to get unstuck? Where are they stuck, and what help do they need?
Well, first of all, people are not ambitious enough.
Interesting.
I always say, don't put the ambition here, because then you take the easy steps towards that. But think of what you actually want to achieve, and that is mostly here. And then you can take the challenging steps together to get there, and really get energized and pumped to go there. It's a whole different way of working. What I also see is that many people think in problems.
Interesting.
And I help them see those problems as opportunities.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and that's a very human thing to do, to look at a situation and think, oh, this is a problem, but there's always a silver lining. There's always something you can do. I mean, many things are not possible, but let's have a look at what is possible here. And when you set an ambition like this, there are always things that you can do to reach that. And and I explore that together with my co-workers and clients. Yeah.
And is this what you call retraining your rethinking muscle? So is that part of that?
Yeah, that is part of it. Yeah.
And what else is involved in that rethinking muscle? When you use that term, what else are you finding that people need to rethink and get good at rethinking?
Well, they also have to look at things not in the way of I have to do this alone.
Yes.
We talked about it earlier, opening it up. When you share a vision or an idea and you share it with some people, there are always people that see an opportunity in that and they come with new ideas. And together, those ideas become, well,
so
very
much
special.
greater.
And very unique also. When you really combine it to a certain place and with certain people, it's always you come with unique solutions to whatever problem is there.
Fantastic. Do you find, how receptive are people to this idea of retraining their thinking, or do you find there's a huge resistance to that?
Yeah, it depends, but some people really can really do that, but many people feel resistance. So that's what makes my job necessary, but also sometimes hard. Because for me, that rethinking muscle is so well trained by now. It's natural to me.
Yeah.
And I have to keep repeating and encouraging people. And also when the resistance grows too big, I know I want to go too fast.
Yes.
So I have to lean back a little, and then that things come naturally. Yeah.
And what period of time are you finding you're engaged in these projects? So where, from the moment it starts and someone reaches out to you until people have come on board, and then you're seeing construction happen, you see it come to life, how long does it take?
I normally do the beginning until the plans are made and all the money is arranged, organized, because that's an important part of my work as well.
Yes.
And organization is set, and also mostly it's like 5 years.
Wow. Yeah. So,
and something like 7 years, maybe a bit longer, and then it's built and complete. But of course, when it's a big urban area, that can take way longer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen projects where the initial vision and plans were set, and then 12 months, 24 months later, a new executive comes on board and decides to change that around? They have a different vision, or for some other reason the plans get scrapped and the project.
Of course. Yeah, it happened one time. No, only one time to me, because I'm quite persistent.
Right. I'm sure that counts for a lot.
Yeah, of course. I've had to be very persistent, because people always said, well, this isn't possible. We would really like this, Sandra, but it isn't possible. And when they say that to me, I think, we'll make it possible. And
yes.
But at one project, I had that we were creating a startup factory in an old match factory, which was great. But then the mayor went away, and someone else came, and an alderman became important in that project, and he wanted a place for housing.
Right.
So it was a very different vision, of course.
Yeah.
And I tried, of course, to put the original vision into action, but well, it wasn't possible. But the whole ecosystem that I built of 200 organizations for that startup factory, that ecosystem is still there. And when I work in another city, I can reach out to those organizations that I have those relationships with now. So we take it elsewhere.
Yeah, so fantastic. I guess you try to a certain point, and then you realize when the door is closed, and that vision is just not going to come to life at that moment for that time.
Yeah, but it was quite difficult. Let me be honest, because I put my heart and soul in these developments. So it was quite hard to let go at that point.
And being a person.
Yeah, but of course, as a person and as a business, you learn a lot. Also from failures. I mean, the project took another direction.
Yeah. Oh, I think that, I see that happening all the time in workplace, that it often there's there might be a direction that's set. I'm thinking of a recent example where there's a direction that's set that looks like the initial vision is really a human-centered design, a human-centered flexible workplace where we have people, property, and technology working really integrated in an integrated way together to create a smooth experience for people who come, a place that they want to be. And then the senior leadership team, which seems bought in, changes direction and decides that they're not going to support a really significant part of that project. So it ends up just being your equivalent of the housing versus the really true experience that where you're actually doing placemaking in the true sense of the word, where they're now doing just the property and the technology elements and actually really not addressing the culture and the mindset piece. And so that means
it's difficult, isn't it, to see that happening?
Yes, yeah. And it's not that uncommon, unfortunately, but what happens there is that the people who are in that workplace miss those golden moments, those incredible experiences, those kind of happy days of innovation and happenstance where the environment is really designed so well to support every activity that they're doing there, and they're participating in something that feels larger than them. It feels like it has a narrative around it, and they're in a space where they feel like they can be their best person, and the organization is supporting them to do that. So that's what I love about your work, is that you're really creating these places where people have a similar experience, where they have that, they can be more human in the sense that not just live and work, but actually experience the full breadth of human experiences. And so we talk a little bit about human-centered design and this concept of human-centered design. What does that mean for you in your work?
Yeah, it's so very important. We share that. And it's not so obvious in the Netherlands too. What I see is that, well, I think that 50% should be about people, and 50% should be about the buildings and about the costs and the procedures and all that kind of stuff. But what I see in practice is that almost 100% of the attention goes to the hardware, so to the stones, the buildings, the money, the procedures. And I'm a really big advocate for the human-centered design. You can put gold into stone, but nothing happens.
Yes.
It has to be valuable and meaningful to people. And in creating a great workspace or an urban area, you have to work together with so many people. And the whole cooperation process is so complex, and that needs a lot of attention. And that's also people-oriented design in doing that. I mean, and you said when people feel good and are proud of their environment, it means so much. Yeah, that is really those things that make it important for humans, make it come to life.
They do.
Not what you do in stones.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm excited to learn more about the other projects that you've done and to see these transformations, because it's just so affirming, isn't it? So it's so fantastic for everyone when they're in a space that's just that's building them up. So I know we're nearly at the end of our time, and I feel like we could talk for hours. And so do you have tips from your experience and from the urban design background, urban planning background, and your architecture training on the workspace, and what makes an ideal workspace in your?
I thought about that question earlier, so I was looking in my notes.
Very helpful, thank you.
Well, when I think of workspaces, I think it's very important that people have a private space to work. I'm not a big fan of office gardens anymore. Because, well, certainly now with COVID, we're used to have our own spaces at home.
Yeah.
And I think if they want us to work at an office again, well, we need our private space, because when you're in a big open space with 50 people, it's very hard to concentrate. And it's also very hard to collaborate, because when I say something to my neighbor, I disturb 50 people.
Yes.
So yeah, I hope we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And that we have more private spaces. I mean, you can share it with a few people, with like six people or something, but not with 50 people. It's killing cooperation, and I love to co-create with people. So I think, yeah, that's very valuable. Another thing, I love meeting spaces with personality, and I see many people love that. So of course we need the technological stuff for beamers and all that kind of things, but we don't need those very clean meeting spaces. We had this meeting space. It looked like an old barn with all second-hand stuff from the thrift shop, and people would always book that meeting room.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it has a fun factor, and you can relate, and you can pick up a statue and say, what the hell is this? And it reminds me of this from my grandmother's house. And
yeah,
it doesn't have to be that character, but I mean, if you have all the same conference areas or meeting spaces, there's nothing to talk about. It's dull. So make them fun and creative.
Yeah, great.
I have more tips if you'd like.
Yes, I'd love to. If you've got,
okay.
Let's hear them. That'd be amazing.
I think that the best workspaces are part of a community. So it's not about just the space in itself, but where it is. And I mentioned breeding grounds. I don't know if you know those in New Zealand a lot.
We wouldn't know the term, haven't used the term, but
okay, then
if you would tell us what it means to you, that'd be great.
Yeah, a breeding ground is different from just a normal office space. It holds many businesses, and there is a community manager.
Oh yes.
That brings people from different businesses together.
Great.
Make sure that there are meetings together and barbecues and stuff. And the best breeding grounds also have public spaces like a restaurant, exposition space, etc., so that people from a city can also visit that breeding ground and come into contact with those businesses, what they do, maybe share some thoughts. And it's all very good for cross-pollination.
Yeah, I've come across that concept being called an innovation hub.
Yeah.
And so I like that term breeding ground, where the ideas are breeding and things are growing. Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah. And a student or just startup could meet a CEO of a big company in the coffee corner.
Yeah, nice.
So those spaces are very important for the Netherlands, and those are really the innovation places. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
That's awesome.
The fourth tip is, I think we also already shared this: make people proud.
Nice.
It's quite different if you can say, I have an office at Strijp S or at the Amsterdam Market Hall, which I made a documentary about, than just somewhere, I don't know, in a business park somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah, some nameless place.
Surroundings is important. So in the city of Helmond, there was a lot of vacancy in shops and restaurants. And now we're actually adding workspaces, offices, etc., to the city center. So it gets a new function over there. And to work in those city centers are wonderful because you have everything. You have those shops and those restaurants, the train station, the parks, all those things.
Nice.
And that is so valuable. It's much nicer to work there than at some dull business park, at the highway somewhere where you don't want to go outside.
Love that. Make people proud, and there are some things we know will make the experience better for people. If they can enjoy it, they can be proud of it, they can feel like there's the things that they need and want to do are available and accessible to them.
And it's more than just how it looks, but especially how it's organized. I think your work also focuses on that.
Yes.
It's not just where you have your desk and how the lighting is.
Yes.
But it's how you feel connected to the people over there.
Very much so. Very much so. I think that you're 50-50 on the hard factors and the people. We could apply that same thinking, because what happens in workplaces is they might deal with the property and the technology side, but if they're not thinking through how are teams actually going to use the space to connect, how are they using their technology for information to flow, how are they collaborating, what's working well and what's not working well, and how can we use this space to support more of those productive, engaging, creative conversations and pieces of work. Without that thinking layer, you end up really just creating another battery hen arrangement that just is a little bit different.
You do, I call it people oriented. I also call it the software. So next to the hardware, you really need to be thinking of the software.
Yes, that's great. That's such a perfect analogy. And do you have any final words as we finish up for anyone who is inspired to take a vision of something that could be better, something that could be human-centered, it could be engaging, it could be an exciting place to be. Often workplace program and project managers are up against some of those same challenges, and there's a tendency to want to keep things under control and keep things predictable and really not deal with the complexity and the mess of
but the mess is great. The mess is where the gold is, of course. What I would really like to give those people is, think big. Think big and get inspired by examples elsewhere. Nice. That's the reason why I'm creating these documentaries.
Fantastic.
To show those amazing developments in the Netherlands. I think are worthwhile to see, and because it's on YouTube. And it has those English subtitles.
We'll drop the link in the show notes. I'm
Yeah,
very keen to watch that.
Yeah, I like to do this as well, to go elsewhere and get inspired. And it always gives me a bit of a oomph in the thinking about what is possible.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to share some great examples from the Netherlands. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the Workplace Makers podcast and the inspiration that you've brought around what's possible when you persist and you have a larger vision and you see the potential that people hold, even if we don't know what they hold yet. If we bring them into the picture and find that gold that's going to be in the ideas and in the motivation, the engagement that they bring. There's so much power in that, and your experience and your projects just demonstrate that so beautifully. So it's just been wonderful to talk with you, Sandra. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for the opportunity. I really loved talking to you about this.
So fantastic. Thanks again.